This is the NFL Offseason Podcast with me, Louis Debe, also along with Dave. Dave, how's it going today?
Pretty good. How about you?
Good. All right, so today we're going to be previewing the NFL Scouting Combine, which is Saturday, February 22nd, so it's a couple days away. We're going to be giving our 5 players each, prospects that we will be keeping a close eye on throughout the weekend. So let's dive right into it. Let's first talk about a guy that's been all over the headlines the past couple of weeks, and Michael Sam, the outside linebacker out of Mizzou. Dave, just talk a little bit about what you want to see from the recent player who is now, I guess you could say, come out. And what do you think we're going to see from Michael Sam, athletic-wise, in the combine? I believe the defensive players, linebackers go Sunday, I want to say.
Yeah, well, the thing about Michael Sam is he's about undersized for a defensive end, but he plays that position. He was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, led the SEC in sacks, though. But, I mean, a lot of scouts are going to want to see him at outside linebacker, so, I mean, everyone's going to be watching him, too. So they're going to want to see how, and I'm going to want to see how he performs on the dropping back drills and playing outside linebacker.
SEC in sacks, which is the best college football conference, is an impressive thing, but his size is a concern. He was already going to be a fourth-round prospect. To me, I think he needs to go to a system where they already have a locker room that doesn't have problems, like go to a team like Seattle or New England that has a disciplined team. But, like, you cannot go to a team like Miami, which already is going through total locker room trauma with the whole Jonathan Martin, Richard Incognito thing. I want to see how fast he's going to be, honestly, because if he can show some athleticism and maybe in the drop-back drills, if he can show some ability to be in coverage, he might be able to be turned over into an outside linebacker, which will help his draft stock, definitely. Where do you think Michael Sam's going to go in the draft?
I think, like you said, maybe 4th at the earliest, and I can see him falling anywhere to around 6 or 7.
Yeah, again, he has to land in a perfect system because you're not going to have him come in and be your go-to guy in the pass rush. So I definitely think he's obviously a guy to watch, of course, because of all the news of what he did the past couple of weeks. And then, of course, he's just an interesting player to see what he does. So we both have Michael Sam on our list, but we also both have the stout Mike Evans, wide receiver out of Texas A&M, the number 1 receiver for Johnny Manziel. In his first 2 years at Texas A&M will now be going into the draft. Definitely a first-round prospect, had over 1,000 yards and double-digit touchdowns last season. The concern, obviously, is route running, Dave. Is that what you want to see, or is there something else that really, obviously, speeds another concern for Mike Evans?
A little bit of both. Evans is, in my opinion, the second-best receiver in the draft behind Sammy Watkins, and I don't really think it's a question. I think it's out of the question that Watkins is the best.
Close that Lee or Kelvin Benjamin could be near?
When it comes to number 1, I think Watkins is clearly the best.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But I do think that Evans is number 2. So, I mean, yeah, both him and Kelvin Benjamin are huge 6'5" receivers. So,
this year's size.
Yeah. And that's what you want to see. I want to see more than just size. Like you said, his route running has been an issue for him. And also I want to see his speed, because if he comes out and runs a fast 40 time, that's going to boost his value.
A lot of time what I noticed about Mike Evans was he was making plays out of after the route catches, like based on like Manziel would be obviously extending the play with his legs, like he does a lot, which resembles, of course, Russell Wilson, which everyone's comparing him to heading into the draft. But I think that Mike Evans a lot of the time would just go up and grab it on double coverage when really the ball should have been going his way.
Yeah.
So I think the route running is somewhat of concern, but I definitely think he's the number 2 prospect. But I think that you're also going to have to use some caution with him if he's going to come in and be your number 1 guy. I'm not so sure if that'll work. But if he can go somewhere like Pittsburgh that already has an established number 1 receiver in Antonio Brown, I think that would help out Ben Roethlisberger a ton. For Mike Evans, I definitely want to see him running routes, though, at the combine. That's, of course, what I'm going to be looking for. So, Dave, give another player on your list that you definitely want to see at the combine Saturday.
Another player for me is quarterback Teddy Bridgewater out of Louisville. I feel like, at least in my opinion, that his draft value has been dropping a little bit. Not necessarily that people have been finding a whole problems with him. It's just I feel like people are now higher on Manziel and Blake Bortles than they were throughout the season. But if I want to see what Bridgewater can do, because like I said, if he has a good combine, then he could get his value back up. Right now in my first mock draft, I had him going 5th overall to the Raiders, but very well I can see him going. It's unlikely he goes 1, but I can see him going like 3 to Jacksonville.
Is there any way Houston goes Bridgewater?
I doubt it, because I mean right now I think it's gonna be Jadeveon Clowney, but even though they said their top 2 quarterbacks are Bortles and Manziel, so.
I want to see Bridgewater's speed. If of course, I think Bridgewater's going to be an interesting player. A quarterback that I have on my list is Blake Bortles out of UCF, which we just talked about. I think he's going to be best fit in a team like Houston, where he can go in with established playmakers already on the offensive side of the ball. They had Arian Foster coming off of an injury. He's going to be healthy. Andre Johnson and DeAndre Hopkins are 2 established receivers, but he announced today on Twitter that he will be throwing at the combine, and that's huge. Johnny Manziel will not be throwing. I'm not 100% sure on Teddy Bridgewater, but I know Bortles will be throwing. He can show off that arm strength that we know he has, and I really that's really what I want to see is his arm strength, because we know of his obviously he's a big player, and I just don't know. I think interview-wise, that's what's really going to put him over the top, ahead of Johnny Manziel to me. And the Texans are going to take a close look at Bortles. I think he's going to be probably the most interesting quarterback to watch at the combine. Him and Bridgewater, because since Manziel's not really, since he's not throwing, it's something that I don't really take too much into, because I know how fast Manziel is. So, but yeah. I think Bortles could at the combine maybe surpass one of the other quarterbacks. But this quarterback class is this draft is closer than I've seen in a while to who's that number 1 guy. No one really has risen ahead based on what scouts have been saying. But I like Bortles. I think in the combine, I think he's gonna have an impressive weekend.
Yeah, I'm really high on Bortles. I'm going 4th to Cleveland in my mock draft, and yeah, he's my 2nd quarterback in my opinion, going into the draft. Another guy, also a 1st-round pick most likely, is Eric Ebron, the tight end out of North Carolina. He's definitely the best tight end. Number 2 would be Jason Morrow. But the thing about Ebron is, what I want to see is if he's that good enough to be a top 10 pick or a top 15 pick. If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, he's got to be like Jimmy Graham type of a player if you're taking him in the top 10.
Right, because I mean, even like last year, you had Tyler Eifert go in the 1st round.
Yeah.
But he wasn't really. I mean, you didn't see him make a huge impact in his rookie year with the Bengals. The top guy you saw was Zach Ertz. I think Ebron kind of resembles Ertz in which he has some underrated speed, and he's a big player. But yeah, you're right. He has to resemble a top. He's gonna have to be a top player if he's gonna go that high.
Yeah, that's why I'm not really into drafting a tight end in the 1st round.
Yeah. So, another guy on my list. I have Darqueze Dennard, the cornerback from Michigan State. The quarterback class is really close this year. You have Bradley Roby. You have Darqueze Dennard, Justin Gilbert, and Justin Barrett, all right there. No one really has. Everyone's been debating. I've seen multiple mock drafts that have Dennard going first. I've also seen other ones that have Gilbert going. I think if Dennard, what I'm watching here, is his 40 time. If he runs a fast 40 time, I might put him ahead of Justin Gilbert. I haven't watched film on either one yet. I'm right now on offense, still moving my way towards it. But what I've noticed about Dennard is he's fast and he makes plays on the ball. He's not really as fundamentally sound as Justin Gilbert is, but I think if he shows up that speed and the athleticism he has, I think already we know is a little bit better than Gilbert's. I really like Dennard, and the team, obviously, that I watch closely is the Philadelphia Eagles. I run a blog for them. I think that they might take a hard look at a corner, and maybe someone like Dennard will be available for a team like them or Pittsburgh looking for some secondary improvements. But I definitely want to see his speed in the combine.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that Dennard, I have him as my top corner, and I had him going 1st in my mock. Ahead of Gilbert, yes, significantly, but Gilbert was my 2nd, but it really just comes down to the team and what the team's like.
Yeah, that's true, because obviously teams have different evaluations on players, so that's why you definitely you saw last year. I'll talk about the receiver class last year. Some people had Cordell Patterson as the 1st receiver, but the Rams moved up. They took the Bills. They traded with the Bills for that
Nice.
8th overall pick to take Tavon Austin. Now, some people say that might have not have worked out as well. I think more that was more because of the offense that Schottenheimer ran, but that's a whole different story. Getting off topic.
Yeah, I say the Bills won that trade.
Oh yeah, I definitely think
Yeah,
so.
because it turned out to be Manuel and Kiko Alonso for Tavon Austin.
Tavon Austin needs to be in a system where they have two nice playmaking outside receivers. I think like a team like let's just say the Falcons or the Broncos, a team like that, that's where Austin would have fit best. But like that's why definitely I could see it just based on team preference and who, because like you're gonna see like a team that needs maybe more of a playmaker, maybe want Denard more, but then again you might see, I don't know, you might see like the Chicago Bears if they need a shutdown corner because of Charles Tillman's, I don't know if he gets injured, or Tim Jennings based on depth wise, they might go Justin Gilbert. It just depends on who fits their system better. And right now it's close, but I might after watching his 40 time, I think Denard might go ahead, but that's just my opinion. So I'm gonna give my last guy on my list, which is Jadeveon Clowney, who has been probably the most talked about player in
Since
the
last
NFL
year.
draft. He pretty much, there's nothing he could have did in his junior year that would have surpassed what he did his sophomore year to really improve upon that. But I think he still should be the number one overall pick in the NFL draft. I think most people, most scouts, and most draft analysts I've seen have had him going first overall to Houston. How do you pass up the J.J. Watt-Clowney combination and how deadly that defense could be in Houston? Really, I think then they can go quarterback second round. I definitely want to see how strong Clowney is in the combine, see how much he lifts, and also how fast he is, because he didn't really show off a lot of that last year. Kind of had a disappointing year, but the physical attributes are there, and you can't deny it.
Yeah, I know you haven't released your mock draft yet, but who do you think is the Texans taking first overall?
If I'm the Texans, but of course I don't know what Bill O'Brien's thinking. What I'm kind of thinking about O'Brien is if he takes a quarterback, he's going to be linked to that quarterback for his entire career in Houston. If that quarterback does not work out, odds are he's not going to work out in Houston. That's what kind of I've been noticing in the trend. Just look at the Raiders when they drafted Jamarcus Russell. They lost their head coach after that. Just a lot of time when the quarterback you take doesn't work out, it just tends to go downhill from there. If I'm Houston, I'm going best player available, and the best player available is Clowney. Now, if I'm going quarterback, I'm taking Bridgewater. He's my highest ranked quarterback. I think he just fits the system the best out of all of them. The Houstons need just steady quarterback play. That's why they were so good with Matt Schaub 2 years ago. Not obviously the Matt Schaub of last year, which was a disaster. That's why they went 2-14.
Well, because what you said is you want stellar play, and Schaub last year wasn't anything but stellar.
Yeah, of course. Houston, Bill O'Brien type quarterback to me, from what he had in Penn State with Mike McGlynn, and no, not Mike McGlynn. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, yeah. What he does, what Bill O'Brien likes to do, is he likes to have a standard drop.
You're talking about Matt McGloin?
Yeah, Matt McGloin.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike McGlynn's the center for the Colts. Yeah, but like McGloin, that have underrated speed, but they're not like Johnny Manziel where they're making so many plays off of their legs. That's why you're hearing a lot of Bortles talk, possibly going to Houston. I think he fits, and they're already hiring UCF staff to come to Houston, so maybe that's a hint that they might take Bortles. But it's all smoke screens right now. But to me, I'm taking Clowney. What about you?
I also had Clowney going, but as another reason why people would say about Bortles, I don't know how you'd like to interpret this, but Bortles led down a game-winning drive against Penn State this last year.
Yeah.
So that might make Bill O'Brien like him even more.
Clutchness is a big thing. You haven't seen a lot of. That's why you see Andrew Luck. I'm not sure of the exact stat, but I think he leads. In his first 2 years, the amount of fourth quarter comebacks he has surpasses most, and that's what you need. You need to know that your quarterback can take over a game if he needs to. I've seen that in Bortles. I've seen that in Manziel, and honestly, I've seen it in Bridgewater. Even against UCF when Louisville lost, Bridgewater drove them down the field with about a minute left and took the lead by 3.
And then Bortles drove down to win.
Exactly. So
He one-upped him.
there's all 3 of them
Just like he will be one-upping him in the draft by 1 pick.
by 1 pick.
Maybe. I don't know. but he's better.
I'm interested to see who Jacksonville's go for, because I have them currently. I think that they're close to being Bridgewater, but Bortles, this quarterback class is so close, and I know we didn't have either one had Derek Carr on the Fresno State on our list, but just talk a little bit. Where do you possibly think Derek Carr could end up?
I think he's gonna go 8th overall to the Minnesota Vikings, but even I mean, there's a lot of scenarios that might not happen. And thinking about it, I was actually thinking about this earlier. A couple of scenarios, and the one that I thought was the most fascinating is what if this happens? Say Clowney goes 1, Greg Robinson goes 2nd, and then say like Manziel goes 3rd, but then say Cleveland takes Sammy Watkins, and then Oakland gets Bridgewater, and then that leaves Bortles for Minnesota, and then the Browns pick Carr up at the end of the first round.
Yeah,
that could happen. Or
you could see a team come back in. Like, you might see maybe a team like, maybe if Minnesota goes Khalil Mack there, or C.J. Mosley, you could see someone coming back in.
And then also, I was thinking if Clowney 1, Robinson 2, still Bridgewater and Manziel 3 and 4, but then say Oakland takes Sammy Watkins, and that could drop Carr into like the 2nd round. So that's what I think could happen.
Does Houston pick Carr, or does the fact that they drafted his brother 1st overall in 2002, and he was a total bust, does that play into any effect when drafting or thinking about drafting Derek Carr, who to me is a completely different? I mean, I didn't watch David Carr, but I know Derek Carr's arm strength is something that you can't deny. Is there any effect that maybe if Houston does not take, if they take Clowney first, do they hesitate based on that scenario?
I don't think they should. I think the fans would think about that.
Yeah.
But I think there's better quarterbacks in the 1st round, and I don't think he'll be there for them in the 2nd round. But he could, and if he was there in the 2nd round, I think they snatch him up in the 2nd round if they can.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
But I don't know where he is in the where they pick in the 2nd round.
Yeah, I mean, and then you have
Jimmy Garoppolo. San Diego State. No. That's David Fells. He's out of Eastern Michigan, something like that.
It doesn't matter. He was in a low-tier college offense. All right, so that's going to do it for today's NFL offseason podcast combine preview. Thanks for joining us. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at DB Sports Talk. Check out our YouTube page, youtube.com/NFL Experts. Check out our blog, nfloff.blogspot.com. We'll be next time talking more about the NFL Combine. We'll be recapping all the latest news from this weekend, and we'll see you later.
What? No. This thing? Oh.